And I think also when Mark Cuban bought the Dallas Mavericks, he didn't get a big office. He sat his office right
Yeah.
in the middle of all the other salespeople, and he called them up and was like, "Hey, Dallas Mavericks tickets cost less than a Big Mac at McDonald's. You should try us out." And just went through the phone book just like everyone else and looked. Um, and so I think being in that group, being a part of doing what you ask everyone else to do, I think is a great part of being a leader, and it's a part of extreme ownership as well. If you're going to ask someone else to do it, demonstrate that you're going to be willing to do it also.
All right, BJ. So what is extreme ownership about, and what does extreme ownership mean?
Yeah, so extreme ownership is actually a pretty counterintuitive idea. It's one I discovered, I think, a while back, but I didn't know it by this name. That Jocko William and Jocko Willink and Leif Babin coined the phrase extreme ownership. But it's basically this idea that everything that happens, uh, when you're trying to accomplish some goal, that's on you. Everything that occurs. If something goes wrong, if you have some big presentation and you're carrying your project outside and it rains and it gets destroyed and you want to blame that, oh, it's not your fault. No, it is. You didn't take an umbrella. That's on you. Everything. If someone doesn't do what they're asked to do, that's on you for hiring them. Right? Everything is on you, and take accountability for that. Even when it seems like it shouldn't be on you, everything is on you. And if you have that mindset, it actually works out great. Like it just is efficient, and it's been demonstrated by the Navy SEALs, which both of the authors of this book are Navy SEALs, and they've demonstrated and included a ton of examples about when this has been applied and why it's useful. A big part of it, I think, is just people respect you more when you take full accountability for everything. I think that's just everyone. If you start pointing the blame at everyone else, no one likes you. No one's going to want to work with you. But if you take accountability for everything, it sort of defuses all the ego out of it. Like, if something goes wrong and you guys have a meeting to discuss why it went wrong, if you say, all of this is my fault, everyone's like, okay, great, and let's just work on fixing it, right? No one's focused. Well, when you take all the blame on yourself, no one else feels the need to point it anywhere else, and no one no one wants the organization to fail. Generally, if you have a good team,
Generally, guys,
yeah,
generally.
if you have a good team, they probably don't want the organization to fail. If they'll
Yeah.
if they do kick them out, you don't want to work with them anyways. But since that's true, soon as the pride and ego gets out of the way, you just have a ton of people trying to solve a problem, and that's super efficient. The other thing that I think happens is sort of leading by example. When you demonstrate extreme ownership, everyone else takes on that sort of mindset that everything is on me to get this done. Like even if they're not in charge of anything, I should have communicated better. I should have worked faster. I should have double checked. I should have triple checked. Like even when they're doing stuff right, they'll be trying to achieve some higher level of accountability and ownership of the thing, where that just means everyone works better, right? And so I think that's sort of the cool reasons why extreme ownership works. Both people respect you more, and it sort of diffuses into the entire organization, where instead of having people pointing fingers and making mistakes and being too prideful to correct them, everyone's just trying to solve a problem. And if that's happening, I think great things just come out of that. Like when you're just trying to solve a problem, when you're just trying to make something cool, that's when cool stuff gets made. Not when you're trying to get some status or reputation out of it.
Yeah, you kind of just put your ego aside and you skip the first step of pointing fingers, and you get straight to the part that actually matters, which is solving the root of the problem. I think part of the reason why this strategy works so well is because it's a great way to build respect. because like I kind of think about it from like my perspective and leaders, managers, people that I've seen in my life. And it's always the ones that gain my respect that I think end up being the best leaders in the end. And if if my manager is the one that's going in and leading by example, like I remember I used to work at a restaurant and my general manager hopped in one day in the kitchen and just started making food, right? Because we were short staffed in the kitchen. And I was like, dang, that's really cool. Like I didn't expect my manager to put a hat on and get in the kitchen and start making food. Like that was really cool. And so that day, I would say he earned my respect because like I can't do that, right? And sometimes you'll see managers they'll just walk around and kind of just supervise and just tell you what to do, and you never see them doing anything useful. They're just kind of pointing fingers around, hey, do this, hey, do that. But when they actually get in there, lead by example, and gain your respect, like I think that's a really cool component. And so that's probably part of the reason why I think this tactic of extreme ownership works in the end, because if the leader, somebody that may not even have caused the issue, takes ownership for it, you're going to have a lot of respect for them, A, and B, you're going to get quicker to the problem solving part like we were talking about earlier. And so I think maybe those two reasons I would say are why this strategy works so well. Also, like full disclosure about this book, I in my opinion, like the lessons that you're going to learn from this book are extremely cool, intuitive sometimes, but I think at times it feels like they took 20 pages to say something that could have been said in three or four. If you're somebody that is very interested in learning about what is going on behind the scenes with these SEAL teams, then you're probably going to have a very enjoyable time reading this book. There are also parts that in this book that where they teach the examples within like the business realm of things, which is cool for BJ and I because we're both interested in business. But yeah, I think you're going to learn interesting things from this book. However, if you're not interested in those SEAL stories, then maybe just listening to this podcast and hearing what we have to say may be advisable,
Yeah.
but to each their own.
Yeah, I agree. If you enjoy the stories, if you enjoy learning about the history of sort of conflicts in Iraq in those areas, then
Yeah.
this is a great account of that. But if you're just trying to get the core idea is just everything's on you, right? And to your point about the manager stepping in, I had the same experience of a manager just hopping in to the line. And I think also when Mark Cuban bought the Dallas Mavericks, he didn't get a big office. He sat his office right
Yeah.
in the middle of all the other salespeople, and he called them up and was like, "Hey, Dallas Mavericks tickets cost less than a Big Mac at McDonald's. You should try us out." And just went through the phone book just like everyone else and looked. Um, and so I think being in that group, being a part of doing what you ask everyone else to do, I think is a great part of being a leader, and it's a part of extreme ownership as well. If you're going to ask someone else to do it, demonstrate that you're going to be willing to do it also. Um, and I think for me, this idea of extreme ownership happened my senior year of high school. So this is a bit of a long story, but you know this. I was in academic decathlon, which is a 10 subject academic competition where you study everything: economics, music, literature, all this stuff, and you basically given 800 pages to memorize and be able to compete on that
Hmm.
content. And so I joined that my freshman year and did it all 4 years of high school. And so my freshman year, uh, the other thing is it's a team of 9 people, but because of how it's structured, there's only 3 spots for each person that you're competing for. Like, so you have a class of like 30 people, and only 9 of them will be on the team, and you're personally competing to be in the top 3. And so my freshman year, I didn't make the team, but that was okay because everyone told me freshmen don't make the team, right? And I had an excuse, and so great. I don't. Sophomore year, uh, And then I said to myself, oh, next year, some seniors on the team are graduating. It's going to be easy because 2 spots open up, and me and the other freshmen, we can fill those spots when we're sophomores, and I'll be on the team next year. And so I thought that, and then my sophomore year, a genius freshman prodigy. Everyone called her a prodigy. Everyone called her a genius. From day one, she was doing fantastic in all our quizzes and just knocking it out of the park. And she stole my spot. Not my spot, but fantastic human being. But also, I wanted to be on the team, and it was annoying to not make it. But it was okay. She was a prodigy. She was a genius. I had an excuse that, oh, this is a rare thing. And next year, a senior would be graduating and a spot would open up and it would be easy to get it on the team next year. Okay? That was my mindset again. And junior year, another genius freshman shows up. And the thing, not genius freshman, actually. Initially, they weren't scoring, like, they were scoring good, but not out of the park. But they just got better and better continuously. And by the end, they had beaten me by like 7 points out of 7,000. There was a 7-point difference between her and I. It's actually her birthday today. And she stole my spot again. And it's another freshman. Except this time, the freshman no one called her a genius. She just worked really hard and studied because this class was her lowest grade, right? And so she just put in the extra time and she managed to beat me by studying throughout the year. And so, like, I had an excuse every year, but by junior year, I had no more excuses. Freshman made the team. It wasn't just a genius. It was just someone who worked hard, right? And so that really shifted me towards what I now know is called extreme ownership, where for senior year, because of changes with COVID and grading, like 7 of the previous team members got moved up to my division. So I was competing with 7 previous team members for 3 spots, plus all the new people who joined the class. And so there was already the 3 people who were on the team before, the person who joined with me and the 2 other people who stole my spots, right? And so there were 3 people in the way, and beneath them there was the entirety of the team that I was competing with. But that senior year, I determined I wanted to make the team. I wanted to add something to show for it. So I took extreme ownership for everything, right? Everything was on me. I wasted my time the past 3 years, right? And I just took accountability for absolutely everything, and just I created systems to hold myself accountable. That's when I started recording my time and keeping track of how initially it was by hour, now I do it by 15 minutes to hold myself accountable. But that's when I studied 3 hours a day. That's when I put in all the effort. And then over the summer, like we got our resources in the spring, and so over the summer I would be studying like crazy and just cranking through all hours, like, because I mean it was my last year and it was the hardest year to get on the team. Like I could have very easily dropped out and they would have had a very strong team without me, but I wanted to be on it. And so despite me saying that it would be easier all the other years, it was the hardest year that I actually made it on the team and beat everyone else and was number 1. And so that's how I learned about extreme ownership and demonstrated it, where now, like, now I just put everything on me. Like, I think I had this mindset and I was thinking about this before I even picked up the book. And now this has just reinforced a lot of those ideas that there's not really bad teams, they're just bad leaders. And it's all on you. Place everything on you and you'll be a lot happier. And I guess you might think that's counterintuitive, that you're going to be happier by placing all the blame on you. Because, when you're trying to comfort someone, the first thing that comes to mind is it's not your fault, right? That's one of the first things people say. But I think it is unbearable to feel like you don't have control over your life. Like, I I think it's just completely awful for in terms of like addiction, like feeling you don't have control of your life with addiction. That sucks. As a teenager living with parents, I think that's feeling like you don't have control of your life. That's awful. I mean, of course it's necessary, and of course, like, you're dependent on them for good reason, and you don't know everything. But I think there's that experience that everyone goes through, where, this episode will probably come out around 4th of July, right? And so American Revolution, it's awful to feel like you don't have control over your life. I think there's parallels there too. But I think when you take accountability and you feel like you own everything in your life and you control it, you become a lot happier, because now you're not playing some zero-sum game of pointing blame and feeling sorry for yourself or feeling like a victim, and you're just trying to solve the problem. You're just trying to make your life better.
Yeah, and if the world was that way, I don't think it would be a very meaningful life to live if you actually didn't have zero control over your actions. I mean, we could talk about luck as well, and how like there are people. What were you gonna say?
Extreme ownership. Luck is on you. It's your fault. You should do things that make yourself more lucky. We've talked about that in previous episodes. But
yeah. That's pretty much my viewpoint on it now.
Yeah.
Like no one ever got lucky sitting on the couch and eating potato chips. You know what I mean? Like if you're the person that's going out and creating these opportunities for yourself, like then you could truly say that if something kind of just crosses you and you take the opportunity, like it was only there because you took 10 steps to the right and you saw it, because when you were 10 steps to the left in your prior position, you had no view of it, right? And so you were only able to see it once you actually got up, you threw the chips away, and you got out there to seek these opportunities. So even with luck in there, I think you could still say that there is such thing as extreme ownership, and that you should take extreme ownership for every single thing that happens, every outcome that happens in your life. I still think that you can make the argument for that case. And back to the part where he talks about there's no such thing as a bad team, there are only bad leaders. I will say I did like the example that he used in the book, and how Boat Crew 2 was doing extremely well, and Boat Crew 7 or 8, whatever one it was doing pretty bad. Okay. And the leader in the boat crew that was underperforming was blaming it on everybody else. He was like, dang, like if only I had been put in a better boat crew with people that were more optimistic and more athletic, I would be winning all these challenges. And Boat Crew 2 was destroying everybody. They were winning every single event. They were winning all these activities, and they were getting rewarded for it. Obviously, they got some rest as a result of winning the challenges and races that they were all competing in. And so what the SEALs did, the supervisor SEALs during Hell Week did, was they took the leaders in each boat crew and they swapped them. And Boat Crew 2 was still doing good, but they weren't doing as good as they had prior. Okay. And the leader that they took out of Boat Crew 2 into the boat crew that was underperforming, this boat crew then started performing very well, and they started winning, right? They started beating Boat Crew 2. And so why was Boat Crew 7 underperforming? Was it because their team was bad? Was it because they weren't athletic enough? Was it because they weren't strong enough up here? No, it was because that their leader wasn't leading them in the appropriate way. The leader wasn't taking extreme ownership for their faults. The leader wasn't gaining the respect of everybody else in the team by leading by example and being the person that is optimistic and believes in the team regardless of what is happening and stuff like that. And you can think back to David Goggins, and it's like, I swear, dude, like that example in the book, the guy that they moved, I swear it was David Goggins.
Same thought. Yes.
I think it is.
It completely,
because he was in Boat Crew 2 in one of his times.
You're right. It's a crazy coincidence, but it's completely different timelines when they were at camp. Yeah, I did research that. I had the same thought.
I just assumed it was him and just kept going.
Yeah,
But interesting. Okay, so it wasn't Goggins, but
yeah,
it almost sounds like a Goggins thing,
yeah,
right? Because Goggins is the kind of guy that's being very enthusiastic and very optimistic for the team, and he believes in the team regardless of what happens, regardless of what comes at them, regardless of whether somebody breaks a foot or something like that mid Hell Week or something, you know. He's going to have a belief in the team regardless of what's happening. He's going to fill that hardest role in the team. So like let's say the front of the boat is heavier than the back. I mean, Goggins is going to go straight to the front. He's going to take the brunt of the weight, right? And he's going to be the guy that's putting himself out there, leading by example and making sure that he takes full ownership for what happens within the team. And so when you think about all these great leaders, they're out there in the thick of it working their butts off, right? They're making sure that they're gaining everybody else's respect. And after they're able to gain the other people's respect, it's almost like the other people look at that and they think, wow, like I need to work harder now because I see what it looks like to be somebody that is working hard and is giving it everything they have because they believe in the team at the end of the day. And so I think those are great examples, especially the Goggins one and the example that they used in the Extreme Ownership book with the leaders for the boat crews being swapped because there really is no such thing as a bad team. There is, however, such thing as a bad leader. And I think that example does a really good job showing that.
yeah. And to that point, I think when it comes to leadership, it's not just sort of what you emulate and what you preach. The book also goes into detail about it's about what you tolerate as well. And so, if you're going to let people play these zero-sum games, that's going to affect your organization. And by zero-sum games, I'm talking about ego-driven drama and pointing fingers and blaming and making excuses. Right? It's no one wins at the end of the day from that occurring. Like the goal, it's all short-sighted and not very useful. And so if you can just eliminate those, just don't tolerate them, get them out. And that's not saying don't be empathetic. When people are complaining, hear their concerns and explain why. Like this is where start with why I think comes into it, where you really need to emulate why you're doing what you're doing and make sure everyone in the organization understands why this is important. Because if they don't see the full picture, they're not going to believe in it and they're not going to follow through. And that's on you if they don't, right? Again, back to extreme ownership. If they don't see the purpose why, they're not going to emulate, they're not going to demonstrate or implement what you tell them to. And you're not going to see the results you want. And so, really, just get rid of all the ego from your organization, get rid of all the pointing blame, because you guys are just trying to solve some problem. You're trying to do something. You're trying to provide value in some way with whatever project you're trying to accomplish. And you need to remember that it's not about the status of it or the reputation. It's just getting the job done, making the pie bigger, and then everyone can get a slice. If you waste too much time trying to increase your own slice and get more, everyone loses, right? Because then you're just fighting over a little bit of pie. But if everyone tried baking the pies and getting more stuff to eat, right, then everyone has more to eat and it's actually productive and everyone wins. And you should be trying to play those games where it's not zero sum, everyone can win, and just removing the ego that's going to cloud and disrupt everything. And when that happens, you start running into communication issues where you're not even talking about real problems. It's just emotions, and you need to have logistical discussions where even if it's about emotions and morale, it should be more logistical and honest, and this is just a state of it, and this is how we can fix it. Like, don't try to. I think if you can remove a lot of the, uh, if you can remove a lot of the excuses and a lot of the difficulty trying to communicate because they're scared of losing their job or something, right? You can't have that. You need people able to communicate, able to talk about the problems openly and solve them. And when you have that, that's when you can coordinate and actually accomplish things.
Yeah, definitely don't play zero sum games. That's a big Naval thing that he says. Don't play status games. That's a zero sum game. I think your ego as well. Like if you're not like, it almost kind of sounds like the start with why thing. Like you're working for something that's bigger than you at the end of the day. And if you're doing it for your ego and you're doing it for your status, like at the end of the day, I don't think you're going to get very far because in order to build your ego, in order to build that status, that means you have to take somebody else down, right? Like the pie is fixed. There's only so many slices of pie that you could take. And so you kind of have to fight other people for their share, their slice of the pie. So you don't want to play those games. Like BJ was saying, you want to make it to where everybody has their own pie and everybody's making their pie bigger by adding to whatever it is, adding to society, adding to the team, adding to something by making that pie bigger. And so if you're able to do that, you're able to kind of take the ego that you have and just set it to the side and realize that there are things that are bigger in life than just you. There are such things as teams, there are such things as the happiness of the group rather than just yourself. I think you'll get a lot further because your why at that point is going to be a lot stronger. Your why isn't necessarily just going to be self happiness, self fulfillment by taking others down. It's going to be self fulfillment in a different way by helping other people rather than just yourself. And I think the self fulfillment behind that would be greater anyway. I don't think the self fulfillment and taking others down is going to be nearly as much. It's like entrepreneurship, like in a way, like if you're able to add the most value to society, you're able to get people to pay you for your services. And not only that, you're able to get these people to come back. They're not just a bunch of one-time customers because they buy your product because you're very good at convincing them and they never come back because they realize it's a scam. That's not value. The value is behind creating this product or service that people are willing to pay for, and they're willing to pay for it for an extremely large amount of time because they can tell that your why is very clear cut and that your product or service is going to provide them a lot of value in the long run. And I think that kind of fulfillment is going to be the best in the end, not ego. But I mean, that's kind of a tangent because it's not necessarily tied with leadership, but I think it's something that's important to mention for people that are interested in starting a company and that are entrepreneurial minded. So
Yeah, I think definitely if you have the mindset of we're just trying to provide value, we're just trying to build something here, just get it done. We don't have time for excuses. We don't have time to make the same mistakes twice. We just need to learn. We need to get rid. We're gonna. The trouble with this is that if you're working with highly skilled individuals, they've probably developed some ego and pride in those skills, right? And you do need some of that.
Yeah.
You need people to be confident enough to act. You need them confident in what they know and understand, but you also need them humble enough to learn and become better. And that's a massive sort of difficulty to have both, right? It's sort of a paradox, but I think you can have both, and I think you need both to really accomplish. And so if you start leading in a way where you take extreme ownership and just everything is on you, your entire team and everything down to the bottom worker, that's on you, and you need to both take accountability for that and then just have open, honest discussions about how to solve the problem. Have clear communication about why you're doing what you're doing, and like over communicate and why, and you'll be able to delegate more, right? If you stop focusing on this is how I want it done and trust them to see your idea through in their own way, I think you'll get a lot more out of the people who follow you and trust your leadership. If you place trust in them in the actual execution, just by empowering them to understand exactly why you're doing what you're doing and making sure everyone is on the same page. And if you demonstrate that you'll take responsibility and blame for the bad stuff that happens, they'll be more willing to come to you to, I think, both prevent problems, but also when problems occur, they won't waste any time beating around the bush saying, oh, I made a mistake, because they know you're going to say you made a mistake by not giving them the tools they needed to actually accomplish it, or not being clear enough, or whatever. And they'll start taking more accountability for their own actions, and that's going to reverberate. I can't pronounce that word.
Yeah, that word.
That word, yeah. Just throughout the whole company, the whole organization, the whole team, and everyone's going to start getting to the point where no one is trying to compete for status, no one has the ego, and everyone's just trying to solve the problem.
Yeah, I think just trying to think back to, at the end of the day, it's like, what are ways that people in this life have managed to gain your respect as leaders? Like, what are things, like, just look for things, like, be creative here. Like, what are things that people have done, people could do to gain your respect? Like, is it getting in the front lines and getting in the kitchen like my old boss did? Like, that's a great way. I remember one example is from something that I've seen, at least, is on the cross country team here. We do weight room twice a week, and we have a buddy that we do weight room with. Okay. And on the side of each rack, there's an iPad, and it has the workout for the day. And we log our workouts as we go. We put the weight in and stuff like that. And I remember one time this group, it wasn't me, thankfully, but one of them, they forgot to put their bench away and they forgot to turn the iPad off. And one of the guys in the group, well, first off, coach called them out. They're like, who's in this rack? Like, they didn't put their bench away. Like, they didn't turn the iPad off. And it was really funny. And then one guy was like, oh, it was my fault. It was my fault. I'll take full blame for this. And you could make an argument that it wasn't his fault. Like, he finished the workout before the other guy did and went to, stretch and, wash his hands and stuff like that after the workout. And I think he just assumed the other guy would do it. And even though that was the case, he was like, it's my fault. Like, he took full blame for it, even though the other person was fully capable of doing it and they had been doing the workout longer, which I thought was very respectable, because instead of saying, oh, it was my buddy's fault, my partner's fault, he skipped that part and he goes, I will take full blame for it. He got up, walked over there, cleaned the bench, put it back, turned the iPad off. No one bat an eye, right? And so it's just examples like that where you're taking extreme ownership in a case like that, where the problem got solved so quickly, right? Like, he could have blamed the other person. They could have talked about it for 5 minutes about whose fault it was. But the problem got fixed within the minute, right? Like, right when coach said something, he was like, all right, my bad, walked over there, fixed it instantly. And I think the problem probably got fixed, not that it was a big problem by any means, but it got fixed probably like 5 times as quickly. And so if you're the CEO of a company like that, or you're the one leading a team, and somebody screws up, that's fine. Take the blame for it and get in there and actually fix the problem, because that's the thing that's important at the end of the day. The thing that's important is fixing the problem, not your ego. Okay. I remember there was like a business example in the beginning of the book where it was I think it was some VP of a company or something like that. He had a high position in the company, and somebody under him made a mistake, and he was just pointing fingers. He was like, it was their problem, and I don't know how I'm supposed to do X, Y, and Z because this person screwed up. Like what's gonna happen here? And the Jocko was just like, hey, dude, like you're not gonna get any further if you don't have some accountability here and take ownership for what happened. Like I get it. It may have not been your fault directly, but take ownership here, solve the problem, and move on with your life. Because you sitting here pointing fingers is not going to solve anything. What will solve something is you taking ownership for the mistake here at hand and actually getting in there and solving it yourself. And so just think about things. I challenge you, think about things that have happened in your life that you've seen other people do. Think of great leaders. It could be your parents, it could be your brother, your sister, it could be the the person that you looked up to in high school, whether it was on your academic team, whether it was on your sports team, whether it was a teacher. Just think about things that they did to gain your respect. And I challenge you to start implementing those in your life because that example that I was talking about with the weight room, that was something that happened in the past year, and it was before I read this book. And I remember thinking, like, right when he did that, I was like, dang, like that was really cool. And the guy that stepped up and did it, like, he just graduated, but he was one of the guys I'd say I looked up to in my life that had been a really great leader. Like he took accountability for literally every time somebody screwed up. It was crazy. But I challenge you to do that and try to implement those things into your life because as you read this book, or if you have already read it, or as you're reading it, you'll start to see parallels if you've seen some great leaders in your time. And so just try to take those things because
Yeah,
I think it'll get you far.
I think there's a really simple, great application of this is like anytime you're mad at someone else, apologize to them and take the blame and just diffuse the whole situation. Like, hey,
I like that.
sorry, I should have been clearer about this, and don't be sure not to like patronize them. Like, be genuine
Hmm.
and realize that you made some mistake. That like, if you expected them to be somewhere, you should apologize, and they didn't show up. You could show up and be like, hey, I'm sorry. I know you have a lot on your plate. I should have been more considerate with planning this, and maybe we should have just done a phone call instead of meeting because we didn't really need to meet, right? And just call yourself out on things that you could have done better. One, because that will make you a better person and you'll make less mistakes in the future. And two, it will just get that respect. And so I think if you can do that and implement this like regularly and just make it a habit to assume ownership, if for whatever, to take the blame on everything, even when it's not your fault. And I think you'll be surprised how like both happy and efficient it makes you. And I think that's a really good combination for life.
Yeah.
I think that's all I have to say. So we're very, very
Yeah.
happy you made it this far. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and tell us what you think about extreme ownership with someone who's demonstrated. Maybe share this video to someone who's demonstrated extreme ownership. They'll take it as a
Yeah.
massive compliment. Um, and yeah, we'll be back next Tuesday at noon. Don't be late for our episode, and we'll see you there.